What distinguishes this humanitarian crisis from those you've seen over the course of your career?
I think what is different here is what I would call a cynical indifference to the humanitarian plight, to the ever-growing dimensions of that humanitarian plight, which in other situations would have provoked certainly a humanitarian response through funding of the humanitarian organizations, and also eventually a political response. But I mean, what is different is we have been getting very credible numbers of people displaced, killed, etc. And we have just taken note and not acted on it. And I don't remember any crisis. First of all, this is by far the biggest crisis in this generation, but I don't remember any previous crisis of fairly big dimensions where there was this kind of indifference to the situation and no response.
How does sectarianism affect the ability of neighboring Middle Eastern countries to accommodate Syrian refugees?
Well, all the neighboring countries, or all, I would say, first and foremost, Jordan and Lebanon are facing their own very serious sectarian challenges, have over the last 20-30 years gone through many problems of serious threats to their stability. Jordan on the Palestinian issue, Lebanon both with Palestinians but others. So when you suddenly have hundreds of thousands coming, mainly belonging to one sectarian group, but also to others, it immediately distorts those balances, threatens those balances, and it is impossible to act in a purely humanitarian way. I mean, in the case of Lebanon, very worried about that. They have decided not to establish any refugee camps and sort of believed that they could manage those sectarian challenges by simply just spreading the refugee population. And in the case of Jordan, the response has been slightly different, but at the same time also constantly mindful of these threats based on the previous experiences. So I think it is surprising that they have even received so many, that they have been prepared, but they can't close the border. So what could they do? So maybe one should not be surprised, but then at least it's admirable. But we cannot just stand by and see that and not be aware of these acute threats to these societies and not to do something about it in terms of the right kind of support before it's too late.
What demographics are disproportionately affected by the crisis, and how should policies address these groups?
Well, I think on the demographics, I think that there are two things that I would say that in case of Syria, there is no doubt that Syria is losing a whole generation. And if Syria ever comes back together again as a Syria it is now, or another form of Syria, there will be a very serious challenge in addressing the demographics, with a whole generation of children not having access to education, with also now many of the best educated, trained professionals leaving Syria. Will they return or not? So that is one consequence. And the other is, of course, on the demographics in Europe. I mean, if Europe would be a little bit more enlightened, and in particular looking at the Syrians, they would see this as an opportunity not only to do what they should do from a humanitarian point of view, but the Syrian professionals and the Syrians could go in and fill many of the gaps that we have in Europe now because of the demographics. Welfare societies difficult to maintain at this level because the group of pensioners are increasing and the group of work-active population are decreasing, and eventually we may not have enough in the work-active population to maintain the welfare societies. Europe needs immigration, and here they are almost handed immigrants with all the qualifications to go in and fill those gaps, and still not seeming to understand that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.